reserve currency and the center of the planet, moved to Wall Street. Today, we're traveling at the speed of light towards a new age, an era shaped by the consolidation of Bitcoin as the currency that will define the future of the markets. We present Roxom, a new Bitcoin-denominated market that allows trading all sorts of securities, commodities, derivatives, options, and anything you can imagine. Roxom, rock-solid markets.
The future of capital markets runs on Bitcoin. Introducing Roxom, the first ever exchange where Bitcoiners can trade treasury stocks entirely in BTC. Get exposure to top Bitcoin holding companies like MicroStrategy and Metaplanet, priced in Bitcoin from the start. No fiat, no middlemen. This is what financial freedom looks like. Early access now live at roxom.com/treasuries. Built by Bitcoiners for Bitcoiners.
Today on the Blockchain Report, Bitcoin sitting at 119K and the countdown to liftoff might have already started. CEO of Bitcoin Magazine, David Bailey, is expected to drop $760 million on Bitcoin today because smash buy apparently means front run me, please. CPI data just dropped and it could send Bitcoin to a new all-time high or just wreck everyone before breakfast. Jeff Bezos now accepts crypto for space flights. And we'll be joined by quantum computing expert Isaac Kim and the host of the Bitcoin Matrix podcast, CEDRIC YOUNGELMAN. All that right now. Let's go. Good morning, my blockchain beauties, and welcome back to your daily ride on the Bitcoin roller coaster here on the Blockchain Report. I, of course, am your host, Hank Hudson, coming to you live from the Bay Area. Yeah, it's Tuesday here too, that magical day of the week when you're almost over Monday, but still far enough from Friday that HR has started a pool on which Slack channel you'll have a meltdown in. Now, before we cannonball into the volcanic hot springs of crypto nonsense, let's show a little decorum here, shall we? And hit that like button like it's the sell order you definitely should have clicked before the end of that last pump. And make sure to follow RoxomTV and yours truly at Hank at RoxomTV, because I'm not waking up at 4 a.m. every day just so my mom can be our only subscriber. But hey, love you, Ma. Now, let's see what kind of mood the markets are in with this morning's market rundown. Let's go. All right, CPI data is in, and let's see if we can get that screen up there. They're working on it, but we can talk about it while they're doing their thing. It is a live show after all, and it's a team effort over here, and they got it. Awesome work, guys. Let's see how things are looking. Hoping for that green money grass, baby, and the market looks all right right now. Bitcoin back up above the 119K mark, near 119.5. Apparently CPI data, which we will be talking about in just a bit, came out looking pretty bullish, and the market has seemed to respond accordingly. Ethereum also having a nice day, up to over 4,400. Will we see that $5,000 breakout on the horizon? I sure hope so, and I'm sure Vitalik and his little buddy Mudang do too. XRP sitting around 321 a share, up over 2.5 percentage points this morning. Cardano looking good. Hoskinson doing his happy dance. They're up almost 5% on the day, right around 81 cents a coin. And last but not least, Dogecoin kind of trailing in the back of the room. They're up over 2% today, right around 22, 23 cents a pop. Let's see if things are looking any better in TradFi today. We'll bring these numbers up here. It's looking okay. Let me get it on my screen. Right now, the Dow Jones is sitting right beneath 44,500, up about a percentage point this morning. The NASDAQ almost up 1% itself, right around 21,500-ish. S&P 5 also feeling the love. They're up 51 points today, sitting at about, $6,424. MicroStrategy down a little bit this morning, about $3.50. Tesla down about $3 itself. Nothing crazy going on there. Coinbase sitting tight at around $3.20 a share. Nvidia at almost $182 a pop. And lastly, we got GameStop doing what it does best, which is pretty much nothing. Still sitting around that $22, $23 range. We got a jam-packed show for you today. We got some amazing guests, big stories, so stay tuned. Our bull run will be next, right after this break. We'll see you in a sec. All right, welcome back to this morning's Bull Run, where we go over the top stories of the day. Let's get into it because we got a lot to cover. First up, Bitcoin Magazine CEO David Bailey says he's about to execute what he calls a smash buy of Bitcoin. Originally, Bailey described it as a $1 billion purchase. He later admitted that was a little generous rounding, with the actual figure closer to $760 million. Still a good amount. The buy is scheduled for some time today, and just an hour ago, in fact, he posted this on X. Can we bring that? Do we have that clip for us, guys? Saying shorts are paying 200% to borrow Naka right now and climbing. Hope it works out for them. Now, Bailey co-founded Bitcoin Magazine's parent company, BTC Inc. He also runs Bitcoin treasury firm Nakamoto Holdings. He says no new funds have been raised in the past 2 months because of regulatory rules. Those rules stop fundraising after filing a definitive information statement. They also limit how many shares can be issued. Bailey confirmed it will be $760 million on day one, with more purchases planned after. He won't just fire off one massive market order either. Instead, he's using a volume-weighted average price strategy, also known as a VWAP for you acronym people out there. That means breaking the buy into smaller trades spread across the day. Now, the idea here is to minimize slippage and avoid turning the market into a trampoline. Now, VWAP blends the buying with existing market volume, so the final price hugs the day's average without any huge spikes. In the past, Bailey has advised Donald Trump on crypto policy and has been public for years about wanting to pull off a major Bitcoin buy. Now, if Bailey's $760 million day goes as planned, today might be the kind of day Bitcoin chart watchers frame and hang on their wall. So that's exciting. Get ready to get your frames ready there, gang. In other news, Bitcoin's hovering around 119K right now, but that number might look adorably quaint by the end of the day. Why? Well, because this morning's CPI report just dropped, and it came in cooler than expected. The July Consumer Price Index rose 2.7% year over year, just under the 2.8% forecast. And core CPI, the Fed's favorite flavor, clocked in at 3.1%, matching estimates. In other words, rate cuts are back on the table. Hooray! Now, Alice Liu from CoinMarketCap says this report could lock in expectations for a September Fed rate cut, which means that Powell might finally stop cosplaying as Paul Volcker and start pretending he cares about your mortgage rate. And when rates go down, Bitcoin doesn't walk, it tends to sprint. Over the weekend, BTC flirted with 122K, while Ethereum popped 20% because apparently Ethereum refuses to die as long as macro conditions are vaguely bullish. Meanwhile, open interest in options is officially at levels. $43 billion for Bitcoin, $14 billion for ETH, which means volatility is about to go full Michael Bay. Now expect short squeezes, sudden liquidations, and a handful of low-volume altcoins mooning for no good reason. Isn't this one just great? I love this picture. Now, as for Donald Trump's tariffs, right? Well, they're in the numbers as well, and just not setting anything on fire yet. Used car prices rose 0.5%, household furnishings ticked up at 0.7%, and transportation and medical services were both up 0.8%. But food was flat, energy dropped 1.1%, and new car prices didn't move at all. Even Jared Bernstein, former White House economist, called it not hair on fire, which is economist speak for Now, of course, the Bureau of Labor Statistics, the folks publishing these numbers, are under fire themselves. Donald Trump just fired the previous commissioner and plans to nominate E.J. Antoni, a CPI truther, as the new head. So while inflation looks under control today, the credibility of the data, less so. Still, the market doesn't seem to care. Futures are up, yields are down, and the CME FedWatch tool is now pricing in an 84% chance of a September rate cut, with a 67% shot at another one in October. So, yeah, bullish vibes all around, baby. Narratives are locked in, and all we need now is for Jerome Powell to turn to the camera and whisper, "Risk on, baby." But hey, if the data had come in hot, Bitcoin would have dumped like 15K, macro bros would have emerged from hibernation, and Twitter would be a war zone right now. But instead, this CPI report just became the best thing to happen to your crypto bags since BlackRock filed a new ETF application. As always, it's crypto though, so you don't get to be right, you get to be early and then wrong anyway. It just seems to be how it works. And Jeff Bezos' Blue Origin has officially joined the Take My Crypto Club. It's like my favorite club. The aerospace company announced it will now accept Bitcoin, Ethereum, Solana, USDT, and USDC as payment for commercial flights on its new Shepard rocket. The integration is powered by Shift4 payments because apparently, if you can send billionaires to space, you can figure out how to take Bitcoin without complaining about volatility. Customers can use popular wallets like Coinbase and MetaMask to buy their ticket to the edge of space. That ticket gets you a seat on the same rocket that's already taken more than 75 people past the Kármán line, which in space tourism terms is the line where you stop being just a guy in a plane and start being that person who won't shut up about going to space. Katy Perry, we're looking at you. Earlier this month, Tron founder Justin Sun became the youngest Chinese commercial astronaut after riding Blue Origin's 14th human spaceflight. So yeah, a guy who created a blockchain project that once gave away a Tesla on Twitter now has actual astronaut status. Shift4 CEO Taylor Lauber says the partnership is part of their mission to make transactions simple and now beyond Earth. Lauber says the new system will let space tourists pay using their preferred methods, including crypto, in a seamless process. Blue Origin says the move is also a response to growing demand for secure digital payment options because nothing says secure quite like wiring Bitcoin to a rocket company so they can strap you into a pressurized metal tube and launch you into the stratosphere. The crypto payment option is available for all future New Shepard space flights. So if you've ever wanted to trade sats for a seat in zero gravity, you can do it now. Assuming, of course, your portfolio survived the last dip and you're cool with paying in Bitcoin for something that technically leaves the planet but still comes back in under 15 minutes. We're taking a break, but when we're back, we're going to be joined by our first guest of the day, Isaac H. Kim, to talk about quantum computing. And we got more stories ahead, so stay put. Blockchain Report right back after this.
Security matters. Zappo Bank, the only way to bank your Bitcoin. Apply now at zappobank.com.
So, tell us about your furry friend here. What's his name?
Oh, this? This is Bitcoin.
Bitcoin.
It's not just a cat, he's family.
Quite a name, and I must say, looks quite pampered.
Oh, absolutely. Bitcoin deserves nothing but the best. He's my little prince.
But with such a valuable pet, aren't you afraid of losing him?
Losing Bitcoin? No, it never happened before, so it's not something I worry about. Excuse me for a moment. Bitcoin, stay here, right?
Bitcoin, no! Bitcoin, come on, little buddy, Bitcoin, I need you. Don't go.
All right, welcome back to this morning's deep dive on the blockchain report. Our first guest today is truly a quantum mind in a world full of classical thinkers. He's an assistant professor of computer science at UC Davis, where he's on the front lines of building the powerful, reliable quantum computers that could one day break Bitcoin or save it. If you've ever wondered what it takes to simulate the universe, rewrite computation, and potentially reshape the future of cryptographic security, this is the guy. So let's give a big blockchain report welcome to Isaac H. Kim, everybody. Isaac, welcome to the show. We are excited to have you, and so is our studio audience. How are you this morning?
Good. Hey, thanks for having me.
Oh, the pleasure is all ours, Isaac. Before we get into the goods, for our folks at home that might not know of your work yet, could you give us a little bit of your background? How did you get into quantum computing, and what drew you to focus on building reliable quantum systems?
Yeah, so I started off in this field as a PhD student, like most people in our field does. And one thing that drew a lot of people into this field was the prospect of quantum computing, doing computations that we can't do currently. And it became very quickly clear from the early on that the biggest problem for building a big, large-scale quantum computer that's useful for something is to build a reliable quantum computer. So that's why I started to focus on that.
Very cool, very cool. We're super excited to talk with you about it because we know quantum computing and Bitcoin are seeming to be at a head-on collision, and we're not really sure what that means going forward, so we're happy to have you to kind of clear some of that up for us. So I guess that kind of means let's start at the beginning here. In layman's terms, what even is quantum computing, and what makes it such a game changer compared to the regular computers that we're using right now?
Right. So quantum computer is a new type of computer that harnesses the power of quantum mechanics. The usual computer that we use just use classical physics for the most part. So like the information is stored in terms of 0 and 1. Quantum computers store information in what people call as quantum bits, so-called qubits. And surprisingly, this lets you do computations that are exponentially difficult on a classical computer. This doesn't mean that it's good for everything. It's known to be only good for very specific tasks. Like one thing is, for example, breaking Bitcoin, but more positively, simulating a lot of quantum materials is exactly what quantum computers are good for.
Interesting. And in respects to Bitcoin, you've gone on record saying that the risks to Bitcoin are real in the long term. Can you give us kind of a gut check on what that timeline looks like? Are we talking about 10 years out, or could this sneak up on people a lot faster than we think?
Right. So that's a very interesting question for obvious reasons. And the fact of the matter is, even for the experts, it's not so clear what the exact timeline will be. However, I wouldn't say the possibility of this happening within 10 years is so negligible that we should totally ignore it. Because the fact of the matter is the progress in quantum computing has been going very fast at a pace that is much faster than I certainly expected. But at the same time, I would say I would be very surprised if there's any risk for Bitcoin within the next 5 years. So I expect there to be a lot of progress in building a intermediate scale fault-tolerant quantum computer that's useful for some scientific tasks. But those computers will not be large enough to crack Bitcoin. So I would say certainly more than 5 years, and it's a conservative estimate would be that we'll need at least 10 years, but the probability of happening within 10 years is small, but not totally negligible.
Okay, so I've got 5 to 10 years before I'm crying into my cold wallet. Good to know. And you mentioned it could crack Bitcoin. What does that actually mean? Are we talking someone being able to steal my sats out of random wallets, or what does that actually mean in practice?
Yeah, so for most people, you don't actually have to worry about it too much because there are actually two layers of protection. One is using public key crypto system, and the other using basically hashes, for which the quantum computers are known to be not useful at all, really. Only if you use these like super old wallets that were only protected by like elliptic curve cryptography, then you should probably move that to a wallet that has like a double layer of security. But for most people, this is not a super serious concern. And moreover, well, I'm not an expert on crypto, to be honest, but my impression is that there is a movement for making Bitcoin, a future version of Bitcoin, more secure against quantum attacks. So as long as that is still going, I think for everyday people, one shouldn't worry too much about this.
Okay. And what is it about Bitcoin that makes it more vulnerable than people might think? Is it because it's open source, or is it just a cryptographic sitting duck? Like what's going on there?
Yeah, of course, like it's not just Bitcoin, but also like Ethereum, for example, that will be like vulnerable to attacks. Like a lot of cryptos that are based on elliptic curve cryptography or RSA. I mean, they almost never use RSA, but in this setup, but any setup like that is vulnerable to quantum attacks, and this does include the banks. But what makes this particularly dangerous for cryptos is that, for example, for commercial banks, if they want to upgrade their crypto system within a year, I mean, that would be challenging, but it'll be definitely doable because maybe the CEO will just give a direct order to update everything, and like everybody will have to follow that. For cryptos, it's not so clear how fast this can be done because there seems to be a need to consensus to make these kinds of major updates. And so there is a worry that, maybe there's a surprise progress in quantum computing, and maybe we're only, let's say, 3 years away. I mean, in the future, let's say we're only 3 years away from building a quantum computer that can crack pretty much all the known cryptos in the world. Like, is that enough time to actually update everything we have? That I'm not so sure, actually. So that's the main thing that I'll be concerned about.
Interesting. And you brought up something I wanted to touch on too. You mentioned traditional banks, and I've seen on the Twitters and whatnot, people are saying, well, if quantum computing becomes this thing that can crack Bitcoin, why wouldn't it just be able to crack traditional finance first? And is that because of what you mentioned, that JP Morgan, Jamie Dimon could issue an initiative, they could act on it quickly, but because of the open source nature of Bitcoin, it'd be a lot more challenging to update the network to defend itself against quantum computing?
Right. I think that's one thing. And another thing is that, like for some wallets, we don't know like who that wallet belongs to. So there's a certain sense of anonymity compared to traditional banks. Like even if you steal something from traditional banks, I think like with the centralized database on who had what, some like history of what happened, I think it's reasonable to think that one can like restore the funds somehow. But with Bitcoin, obviously, this is just not going to be possible. So that I would say that's another potential issue.
Yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense. And I guess my next question is, I hear of like the idea of a quantum attack. Like if someone did launch a quantum attack, what does that even look like? Like would the network slowly start breaking down? Would it just be all like a kind of binary thing? Like it's not happening and then it happens and all my crypto is gone? Do you know what that even would look like at this stage?
Probably what it would look like is that some of the lost like old Bitcoin addresses, which are only protected by public key crypto systems, they'll probably start to make large movements because like those are the kind of funds that is likely lost. And so it is likely safe to steal. So for the quantum hackers, this would be the easiest target. So like, I don't think if you're actively, if you have a like very recent Bitcoin wallet that's been active for the past few years, then most likely your fund will not get affected. But there'll be lots of movements like this. But there might be some like indirect effects, namely seeing these kinds of unusual movements, people might get concerned, and that might undervalue the whole value of the Bitcoin and the entire crypto. And how that will pan out is not so obvious at all.
Mm-hmm. And I was doing some research on this before you came on the show, and I read that some researchers say we may need to upgrade Bitcoin's encryption to be, quote unquote, post-quantum. We kind of touched on it earlier. It sounds like it'd be a much easier thing for traditional finance and big banks to do. Mm-hmm. What does that even look like? How do we update Bitcoin software to be post-quantum, and how hard would something like that actually be to do?
Right. So this is a pretty complicated project. Not like, even if it was not just for Bitcoin, but like for traditional banks, this would be like a difficult topic. So there are parts that I don't know very well and the parts that I do know very well. Like the parts that I don't know very well is like, what would it look like for the end user? So I won't be able to touch on that. But I can talk about just from the general perspective, like what it looks like to update these cryptographic schemes. So the thing is, the new post-quantum crypto schemes that we believe to be secure against quantum attacks, we actually have a strong reason to believe that they are secure against them, but there's always some issues with the implementation side. So for example, like when NIST came out and announced their like post-quantum crypto candidates, or of which there are a bunch of them, it was quickly realized that certain implementations of those cryptographic schemes could become vulnerable to some attacks. So some of those like NIST-approved schemes, which were approved in the beginning, got broken under some somewhat non-standard assumptions, but nonetheless, like they could be broken. So I think there's some time needed to actually implement these things and test them against like a real world. If you just hope to make the first version working, being totally secure, I think this is pretty naive. So that's something to think about.
Yeah, and then it kind of begs the question for me. You spoke of like it'd be easier again for traditional finance. You know, JP Morgan says we're gonna make the proper protocol, put the protocols in place to protect ourselves against the potential pitfalls of quantum computing. But for like the Bitcoin and crypto ecosystem, it makes you wonder, who do you think would actually lead that transition to a post-quantum world, right? Is it developers? Is it miners? Is it some foundation? Or does it end up being one of those things where everyone's kind of responsible, so no one does anything? Like, who do you think would actually be the people to implement those new protocols to protect against quantum computing?
Likely everyone that you mentioned. And I guess precisely the concern is what you said at the end, that everybody's thinking that somebody will do it, and therefore they don't take actions. And yeah. And I guess we don't want that.
Sorry, go ahead.
I guess we don't want that.
Right.
We don't want.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And there's plenty of people out there that are kind of putting their heads in the sand right now, specifically some Bitcoiners who are kind of just like, hey, this is just more FUD, which if you're not familiar in the Bitcoin community is fear, uncertainty, and doubt, which is kind of just like fake stuff to kind of suppress the price of Bitcoin, right? And they're saying we'll cross that bridge later. Mm-hmm. In your opinion, how much of a real concern is this going forward? Is this something that the community really needs to be acting on sooner than later?
Oh yeah, definitely. This is a concern that will not go away. Like this will happen in the future. There's absolutely no doubt about that. Especially because in recent days, a lot of quantum computing companies have shifted their gears from doing some near-term, like a hacky small application thing, to like building a truly large-scale quantum computer. Like I would say more than 90% of the companies are focusing in like a majority of their effort on that. And there are, I don't know, like at least like 20 different quantum computing companies using different modalities and different techniques. And there are a lot of interest in working in quantum computing. So with all that effort, do you really think that there's the probability of all of them failing is so high that you're like, this is never going to happen? I wouldn't bet on that personally.
Yeah, and part of me also wonders too, as we are entering the age of AI, right? Artificial intelligence has just been the absolute buzzword of buzzwords the last 2-3 years now.
Right.
Do you think with AI getting so good so fast, could that even make this whole quantum computing conundrum come even faster than we anticipate? Because like AI, the better it gets, the better it gets. Right? So how much of an effect do you think that could have on this timeline?
Yeah, so that's not happening yet. So I am quite interested in using AI for my research. And so far, there are parts of my research that is benefiting from AI, but like building a large-scale quantum computer, I haven't been impressed with the answers so far. Let me just put it that way. But yeah, as you said, like AIs do seem to get better very quickly over time. So who knows? Yeah, maybe they will get so much better that they'll actually come up with a better architecture. I would be pretty surprised, but it's I think within the realm of possibility. We'll see.
Yeah, and do you think with how quickly things are moving right now? You said we probably have 5 to 10 years, but again, with AI and things are just moving fast in today's world. Do you think it would be smart for the Bitcoin network to start testing some post-quantum options now, even if they're not perfect, just to kind of get the ball rolling and get ahead of this before it becomes a real problem?
Yeah, I think that's a very good idea because it's sure like it'll take some time for doing that, but it seems like such a low amount of effort that there's really no like a big, downside of doing this kind of experiment. And more importantly, I should emphasize the nature of how building a large-scale quantum computer works. So, like some people might think that the quantum computers we have right now are so small and so noisy that you don't see it like improving anytime soon substantially. And people usually say that, well, you need like at least like I don't know, like 10,000 more qubits, like 10,000x more qubits, and you need like a much higher fidelity, which is true. But as you scale things up, so the essential part of this whole business is called as quantum error correction. And the nature of quantum error correction is that once it starts working, things start to improve like very, very dramatically. So there might be, let's say, currently the error rate is the probability of some error happening is, let's say, 0.1%. We want to bring it down to like 10 to minus 15 or something. Even though that's like a big gap, once you get below 0.1% and 1/10 of that, then getting to like 10 to minus 13, 10 to minus 15 doesn't require like that much extra effort. So like people will see like a sudden huge change of like the abilities of quantum computer, and we're really at this like a transitioning period. So can't just say that, look, these things are not good and therefore we shouldn't worry about it.
Right. So Isaac, I got one more question for you because I know we got to get you out of here soon. We're running out of time. Worst case scenario, quantum breaks through faster than anyone anticipated. The Bitcoin network isn't prepared. While I know you're not necessarily a crypto expert, what do you think happens then? Could that legitimately be the beginning of the end for Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies as we know it, like realistically?
Yeah, I think this is more of an economic question. I do wonder about that, but well, let me first say I'm not the best person to answer this question, but maybe I would look at like historical precedents in which there's some like valuable asset, and suddenly somebody was able to take a large amount of asset by pure chance or luck or some illegal thing. And then like what happens to the price of that asset? I think the nature of Bitcoin crypto breaking is very similar to that. So I'll probably look into those examples.
Yeah, I mean, it definitely sounds like it's something we need to start preparing for sooner than later, because if we wait too long, we're just entering an unfounded territory where I don't think we're going to find anything we really like, at least from a Bitcoin and crypto perspective. So,
That's right.
Isaac, I got to tell you, I find this incredibly interesting, and you super interesting. For myself and our audience out there that are interested in more of your quantum computing findings, is there a good place they can go, maybe an X or like a Twitter account that you post your findings online if people wanted more information?
Yeah, so I have an account at X/Twitter, so you can just search for like Isaac Kim Quantum. I think the handle is something like that. Yeah, sometimes I post my results, sometimes I talk about what the industry looks like. So if you want to find out, yeah, you can follow me.
Amazing. Well, Isaac, again, thank you so much for your time today. And if there's any quantum, Bitcoin, crypto news or discoveries you come across, we're going to have you back here on the show, because I could really just talk to you about this stuff all day. I find it infinitely interesting, and I really appreciate your time today. Thank you so much for joining us on the show.
Yeah, thank you. This was fun.
Yeah, such a great time. Well, enjoy the rest of your week, Isaac, and keep us posted, my man. You're my new quantum guy, so I'm going to be calling you up.
All right, cool. Thanks, man.
Thank you. All right, we're taking a quick break, but when we're back, more blockchain reports. Stay tuned. We're going to be joined in just a bit by the host of the Bitcoin Matrix podcast himself, CEDRIC YOUNGELMAN. You're not going to want to miss it. We'll be right back with more on the Blockchain Report.
In a world far away. Nah, just kidding. This story begins in this world. It all started in 1460 in Antwerp, when the first commodities exchange was created, but the real transformation came in 1602, when the Amsterdam Stock Exchange was founded. Considered the oldest in the world, it was the first to trade financial assets. Over the years, Britain expanded its colonial and maritime influence, and the British pound sterling overtook the Dutch guilder in the market. Thus, the London Stock Exchange became the financial centre of the world. The 20th century came, and the world got into some trouble. But shortly after World War II, the Bretton Woods Agreement established the dollar as the world's primary reserve currency, and the center of the planet moved to Wall Street. Today, we're traveling at the speed of light towards a new age, an era shaped by the consolidation of Bitcoin as the currency that will define the future of the markets. We present Roxom, a new Bitcoin-denominated market that allows trading all sorts of securities, commodities, derivatives, options, and anything you can imagine. Roxom, rock-solid markets.
All right, welcome back. It's time for the AIAIO. This is where we talk about the intersection of our lives and our eventual robot overlords. And this one, well, it's new. NVIDIA and AMD, you've heard of them. Well, they've agreed to hand over 15% of their China chip sales revenue to the United States government, basically paying a cover charge to good old Uncle Sam so they can keep selling to one of their biggest markets. The arrangement is, how do I put this, unprecedented. Export control experts say no U.S. company has ever agreed to fork over a chunk of its revenue just to get an export license. But it's 2025, and here we are. According to a U.S. official, NVIDIA will hand over 15% from sales of its H20 chip to, while AMD will do the same for its MI308 chip. No word yet on what the government plans to do with the money. Maybe fund infrastructure, maybe buy Donald some snacks for his round at Mar-a-Lago. Who knows, really? The licenses were granted last week, just 2 days after NVIDIA CEO Jensen Huang had a friendly little sit-down with Donald Trump at the White House. Before the meeting, NVIDIA had been in limbo with no licenses in sight. But after the meeting, licenses start flowing like champagne at Huang's hypothetical post-meeting celebration. The numbers here are, let me put it, huge. Bernstein analysts estimate NVIDIA could have sold about 1.5 million H20 chips in China this year, worth roughly $23 billion. 15% of that is, well, still enough to make the Treasury Department's day. This all comes after Biden's administration put strict export controls on advanced AI chips to China. NVIDIA responded by designing the H20 specifically to skirt those controls until Trump's administration banned it back in April. Then Trump reversed the ban in June after meeting with Huang, which was apparently the start of this "you can sell it, but pay us 15% arrangement. Critics, especially national security folks, are not amused by all this. They argue the H20 chip could help the Chinese military and boost China's AI capabilities. Lisa Tobin, a former National Security Council official, put it bluntly, saying Beijing must be gloating to see Washington turn export licenses into revenue streams. She even joked, "What's next? Letting Lockheed Martin sell F-35s to China for a 15% commission?" Meanwhile, NVIDIA insists the H20 isn't a military threat, calling the criticism misguided and saying America can't afford to repeat the 5G debacle by losing AI tech leadership. Or in other words, if we don't sell to China, somebody else will. And this drama isn't happening in a vacuum either. U.S.-China trade talks are ongoing, with Trump aiming for a summit with Xi Jinping. The Commerce Department has reportedly been told to freeze new export controls for now, which might explain why this whole export license for revenue thing got greenlit in the first place. So, yeah, NVIDIA and AMD get to keep selling their chips to China. China gets the chips. The U.S. gets 15% of the action. And everyone gets to argue about whether that's smart trade policy or the opening scene of a geopolitical sitcom. All right, we're taking a break, but when we're back, we're going to be joined by our second guest of the day, the host of the Bitcoin Matrix podcast, CEDRIC YOUNGELMAN, to talk shop. So stay tuned. We'll be back with that and more on the Blockchain Report. All right, welcome back to the Blockchain Report, and we got a real treat for you today, boys and girls, as joining us once again on the show is one of the sharpest minds in Bitcoin media. He's the host of the Bitcoin Matrix, a podcast that goes way deeper than the price charts and isn't afraid to get philosophical. He's a financial consultant by day, a macro realist by night, and a returning favorite right here at the Blockchain Report. Let's give a big welcome back to the show to CEDRIC YOUNGELMAN. CEDRIC, welcome back. And the enthusiasm having you here is just as much as it was the first time. How are you? Thanks for joining us this morning.
I'm doing great. It's great to be back. Thank you so much. I'm excited to get into it again. You guys, it's always a lot of fun here.
We are. Yeah, no, we're super pumped to have you back. There's a lot going on in the world right now. We know you are the guy to talk with us about it. Before we get into the goods, though, CEDRIC, for those who may have missed your last appearance on the show, could you just give us a quick rundown? Who are you? What's the Bitcoin Matrix all about? And what have you been up to since we last had you on?
All right. Well, my name is CEDRIC YOUNGELMAN. I host the Bitcoin Matrix podcast and Bitcoin Center, which is live on Tuesdays at 8 p.m. Eastern on X and on YouTube. The Bitcoin Matrix is a long-form philosophical show about Bitcoin, the sort of the societal, economical, and cultural implications of Bitcoin. Like I said, not just reading the price charts, and there's no real TA. It's not financial advice. We're just trying to explore how Bitcoin affects us and changes all of us and society. So we try to speak to some of the sharpest minds in the Bitcoin space and other spaces that have really interesting ideas to bring to the audience. So I love doing it. It's a passion project.
Yeah, and we love listening to it. You bring such a unique and individual perspective to the space that I have yet to really see anywhere else. So we're super excited to talk shop with you today and go over some of the top stories of the morning. You ready to roll?
Yeah, I'm psyched. I'm ready to go.
Okay, perfect. I'm going to recap this first story, and then we're going to bring you back and chat about it. So here we go. Once again, if you guys remember earlier today, we talked about David Bailey, the CEO of Bitcoin Magazine and co-founder of BTC Inc. He plans to smash buy $760 million worth of Bitcoin, a bit less than the $1 billion he initially teased, but hey, the buy will be happening using a VWAP, which is a volume-weighted average price strategy to avoid spiking the market all at once. Bailey, who also runs Nakamoto Holdings and has advised Trump on crypto policy, has sparked a mix of admiration and skepticism across the crypto space. And now we're going to bring back CEDRIC to talk about it. CEDRIC, you, my friend, have been in the space for some time. What was your first reaction to David Bailey's plan to drop $760 million into Bitcoin in one day?
Well, I was excited for him. It seems like there's a dream come true for him to smash by this amount of Bitcoin at once, even though technically he's using the VWAP. So it's not all at once with one push of a button. But, you know, it makes, from the traditional financial perspective, you'd ask, why would you telegraph the buy? But the Bitcoin treasury company's perspective is all about transparency and communication and sort of letting the market know your intention. So it really fits the bill for what Bitcoin treasury companies and the strategy they've been rolling out and the playbook. So I really get it from that perspective. But it gives your enemies in the market sort of a tip. It lets them know what you're planning on doing. And, maybe there would be defensive reasons not to do that. So it's going to be interesting to see how this plays out. Bitcoin's kind of flat since it happened. Which, we'll see how it goes. And a lot of MicroStrategy, huge purchases or strategy, MSTR, have not really resulted in sort of one day or weekly moves up necessarily. And maybe that speaks to, short sellers and the anticipatory relevance of, market makers knowing what you're going to do. So, but it's very exciting news. I wish it was a little more than 750 so we could have honestly said he, bought $1 billion in a day. That'd be fascinating. So happy for David Bailey. Seems like a dream come true.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, absolutely. And you mentioned that there's usually this element of transparency, and especially in this space, that's something we all love and is encouraged, and that's kind of part of the whole reasoning behind it, right? You can always know what's going on. You could follow the money through the addresses. But do you think that in this case it was a smart move, or does it just encourage others to trade ahead of him? Or are we going to kind of have to wait and see how this plays out to really know?
Yeah, so I think, in my background and my mindset is it seems a little immature to boast about your buys, let the market know what you're doing in advance, let your actions speak for themselves after the fact, I think would normally be better. But this is the playbook for Bitcoin companies, to let the market know what your intention is and let the market see you carry it out. Tell the market you're going to buy Bitcoin, then buy the Bitcoin, then tell the market you're going to borrow more money to buy Bitcoin, then borrow the money, then buy the Bitcoin, and tell the market you're going to buy more Bitcoin with more borrowed money. That is the playbook. That is how these treasury companies get alpha compared to an ETF. And it's how they sort of refine Bitcoin for traditional capital markets, which is what strategy is doing. They're buying tons of Bitcoin and then offering the market different products that they would be interested in for their tolerance of risk and time frame. And that's sort of the refinement process that's emerging. And this could be the way companies act for the next 20 years. So it's very exciting to see. It remains to be seen whether it works out. And the security markets are different than Bitcoin. It's Bitcoin, we think about 4-year cycles. Well, security markets are a little bit more like 3-month cycles, and they have 4 cycles, 4 quarters in a year. And so maybe this isn't great for the security in the short term, letting the market know what you're going to do, letting all the other participants who are not Bitcoin supporters or excited about Bitcoin products sort of trade your stock lower. But long-term, acquiring the Bitcoin will probably prove to be extremely prescient and pioneering. So,
yeah, and we talking about the transparency. Why do you think in this particular realm, in this Bitcoin buying and this treasury company thing we're seeing happen in front of us, why is everybody so transparent about it? Is it because of the nature of Bitcoin and it's open source and you can see people trade, or is it maybe part of, there's always been a hype cycle around the crypto and the Bitcoin universe. So does it kind of feed into that a little bit?
Yeah, I think it's more of an element of retail participation, of looking at the security like a meme stock as an idea, so the strategy is the idea, but you need to communicate the idea to get people excited for the strategy, because the crutch of the strategy from the equity side is to sell your security at a high MNAV, which means you need to have capital come in, rush in, and say, go get Bitcoin on our behalf. We're excited about the long-term implications of this at a multiple higher than the ETF. And the higher the multiple, the more advantageous it is for the company, the corporate equity entity, to buy the Bitcoin on behalf of the stakeholders, which includes the equity shareholders. So I think that the hype cycle is a really big part of this. I just released a show with Jesse Myers, and he spoke to this sort of shorter term cycle within the treasury companies and the equity markets. So it seems like there's more of a bull and a bear market, a boom and a bust on shorter time frames. And I think the marketing, the letting the community, there's communities-based sort of involvement here. And these companies seem to be competing for regulatory arbitrage in specific capital markets. So if you're competing in the UK or Canada or Japan, the strategy playbook in those capital markets, you sort of need to outcompete your competitors too, who are looking to run the same playbook in the same marketplace. So it's about getting, the community support to come buy the stock, to tell more people to buy the stock so that they could trade at a higher multiple to acquire more Bitcoin, and continue to do so at a consistent rate. So whether that's weekly or monthly or quarterly, continue, not just buy, so Jesse Myers would, stipulate or hypothesize, you don't want to go out and smash buy it all at once. Actually, you might want to dribble it out to kind of keep showing growth. Right. So it's a really interesting paradigm. Sorry.
And just so I can get some clarity. No, you're good. You're good. So just for a clarification for our audience out there, if they were to do, let's say, do a smash buy, what would be the implications of that? Would it be they'd be buying it, the market would spike, and like, how does that work? Because if they spread it out, right, and there's these continued buys, would that in theory drive the price higher? So then they're buying back less Bitcoin using more money because they're driving the price up themselves and they continue to buy. Are you able to kind of like expand on that and why they chose this VWAP strategy to avoid impacting the market too much?
Well, yeah, you don't want to spike the price on yourself, so and have slippage in the wrong direction for your own acquisition strategy. That would be one fear that you have. And so I think that you're looking to time your buys when volatility is lower, so you're adding to the volatility and not to the price or to the volume of sales that are in the marketplace. So I think it's just another way of doing the TWAP. How much real slippage is it preventing? How much benefit are you actually accreting to the strategy, or is it really? You'd have to track that and then review that as well. So they would have to I wonder how much they're looking at that internally, and we have no insight into that externally. But I would want to track that. And is it better for corporations to do the TWAP, the VWAP, or just smash buy at once? And why not do it over the counter? Like through maybe a Galaxy. I mean, Galaxy was able to sort of offload what looked like 8 billion Bitcoin in an over-the-counter trade recently that we were all made aware of somehow. So why wouldn't they go that strategy either, or that route? So I don't know the pricing, maybe the fees on their side too. So and the different, the different market makers they're working with and the different fee structures and what they're also trying to examine and see what happens in the marketplace to test the market for future smash buys and bigger, capital allocation and investment. So there could be so many reasons to run the program this way. To your point, though, I'd want to know honestly, is it really, leading to a positive result for the shareholders? Is it is it leading to a better price acquisition? I'm not positive.
Yeah. I mean, we're kind of in some unfounded new territory now, especially with these Bitcoin treasury companies. So I feel like people are still kind of figuring out what the game plans are. And that game plan very well might have to change based on the conditions at a given time, right? And for instance, a question I have for you is right now, Bitcoin is hovering right beneath 120. We get this news of this huge buy. And I feel like during previous cycles, we get news like that. Everybody starts talking about it. We see big jumps in price. Similarly, we saw with Galaxy Digital a few weeks ago, unloads 80,000 Bitcoin. The price goes down like $3,000, comes right back up. What is that telling you about the market today when we can have these very public buys and sells, but we're not seeing these huge movements in price?
Well, I think it says the market's really maturing. It's getting much more robust, that it's able to handle these swings on a daily and a weekly basis. So I think we're witnessing hyper Bitcoinization in real time. This is now a multi-trillion-dollar asset or asset class, Bitcoin on its own. Crypto is now several trillion. So we're watching the market really develop in real time. And as we watch, this sort of cycle seems all about institutions and potentially or possibly nation state adoption. So we're looking at Bitcoin OGs finally unleashing 10, 15-year-old Bitcoin into the marketplace. And it's quite possible that the new holders will hold for much longer than the first round of long-term adopters and holders, setting us up for a much bigger bull run than anyone anticipates. I mean, why would David Bailey smash by $1 billion worth of Bitcoin? If on one hand, maybe he anticipates a huge swing in the price of Bitcoin and doesn't want to have that slippage after the fact. It could also be that, maybe there was an unlock on Nakamoto shares, and Nakamoto shares were up 50% yesterday and trading was halted. Right. Maybe that's an exit strategy on the security side. I mean, there could be so many ways to play, an individual's hand, why you would make an announcement like that. But I do think that this market, from a Bitcoin perspective, $1 billion VWAP'd over a day or a week is not going to push price around too much. We've seen that with strategy. We've seen that with Galaxy. This is a much more mature market. It's open 24/7, 365 days a year. So in terms of actual, sort of how old this market is, it's comparable to the S&P 500 in terms of actual trading hours. We have probably a century of trading baked into the first 16 years. So that's sort of the compression-like effects of having a native internet money on top of the internet, and then we're building a marketplace around it. Everything's happening so much faster and evolving that much quicker. So
wild and unprecedented times for sure, and it's certainly exciting as we're seeing these types of big events happen every day, and we're not really sure what way they're going to go. And I mean, this is these learning periods.
These are huge events, and they're you would think just on market sentiment these events would drive price up, and they're not. It's almost acting like a bear market in a weird way, and it just seems like every dip gets gobbled up. And so that's also the Bitcoin ETFs, which are growing. We talked about this last time, at just a tremendous rate. So the Bitcoin ETFs, and these seem like the smartest of the index investors. They don't seem like swing traders. They don't seem like highly speculative investors. So I think, and you see a lot of institutions buying the ETFs.
Right.
So
I mean,
like Harvard
Harvard
just bought $100 million.
Right. Yeah, they just made that big purchase. I feel like we're in this new era of financial chess, and we're playing with a bunch of financial Magnus Carlsens right now. It's just like, I mean, Michael Saylor might be the Magnus Carlsen of the times right now, but it's just wild. And another thing I thought was super interesting about this buy was that Bailey is using his media company and treasury firm to buy Bitcoin. Do you think that's kind of a glimpse of what future corporate strategies might look like?
Well, it does seem apparent. I mean, every CEO is on X now, and it seems like their job is pure. It used to be the CEO was the visionary for the company who understood the product at a very in-depth level, and sales were sort of the veneer that we didn't talk about was the main part of the CEO's role. But now the CEO is either on TV or on X all the time, has to tell the story. And so I think it's much more indicative that the leading companies in Bitcoin have media arms to get their story out and take advantage of the network effect and virality of investing today. So So he has the conference company, he has the media empire, and now the treasury company group, and they all feed each other. It's a huge flywheel effect. We already talked about how important it is for Bitcoin treasury companies to message and to build community and communicate with their community. Well, if you have a media arm, that's going to make it a lot easier to get the message out, the word out, and communicate with your stakeholders and get them excited about what you're offering. It seems like that's a really big part right now because of the MNAV multiple and how we look at these Bitcoin treasury companies. You have your small caps now, you have your mid caps, and your large cap, and that's really just strategy. And strategy is on the cusp of getting sort of institutional grade awareness for their products and services, which is just going to have an effect on all these other companies in all these other different markets. So what's also going to be interesting is how these different places like Japan, whether they change their tax code and their retirement code. I mean, President Trump just signed an executive order to allow, to kind of steer or encourage, Bitcoin and crypto in 401ks to make the road and the path easier for the average American to get Bitcoin into their 401k. This marketplace is maturing at just a rapid rate.
Yeah, and I think a lot of it has to do with, and it seems like this isn't something that's only in the Bitcoin crypto business, but like any company isn't just what their company is. You also have to be a media company to feed that flywheel you talk about, because talking about the moves you make seems almost as important as making the moves themselves, right? It's kind of like if a tree falls in the forest, did anyone hear it? Someone better heard about it, because we need to talk about it, so otherwise the price action and that hype cycle doesn't continue. And I wonder do you think from a kind of a psychological perspective, specifically in regards to retail, do you think big moves like this make Bitcoin look more legitimate in like the eyes of John Q. Public, or does it start to kind of feel like a game for billionaires because there's so much institutional adoption? And I feel like retail's kind of been sitting on the sideline a little bit, feeling like we're priced out when we know you can buy any fraction of a Bitcoin you pretty much want. How do you think this is all having an effect on, again, John Q. Public and Jim and Bob and Mary and Sue out there?
I don't. I think it's having very little effect on John Q. Public. I think they're not. I think they feel burned by Bitcoin and crypto in general over the years with FTX and Celsius and Luna. I think they're just extremely weary and cautious of something like Bitcoin. It's the unit price bias effect that it seems expensive, even though you could buy a fraction of Bitcoin. I don't think this cycle is about retail at all in terms of moving the Bitcoin price. I think the retail excitement, if at all, is in the Bitcoin treasury companies. I think that's where you have your retail fervor and your meme stock fervor. And I heard David Bailey talk about this at the beginning of the year. The amount of capital during the 2017 bull run probably dwarfs the amount, well, obviously dwarfs the amount of capital in Wall Street, at a Morgan Stanley, at a Charles Schwab, at a JP Morgan. The amount of capital they manage on behalf of their clients and their institutional and retail clients. That is the money that is going to come to Bitcoin if we have another bull run in 2025. And that will that's why this is, I think, the participants, the insiders, the Bitcoin treasury companies are so excited because they've figured out a way to wrap Bitcoin and securitize it legally and offer it to the largest marketplace in the world. And this marketplace is starved for yield from, Japan, which is just, decades of being starved for yield, all the way to the United States Treasury, which needs to sell treasuries to somebody who still believes that the treasuries will be paid in the future. And that's the stablecoin market. So the United States government needs this, the Bitcoin market to grow, for the stablecoin market to be the on-ramp and grow alongside and be correlated to Bitcoin, and sell treasuries. This is what all the institutions and nations are sort of pivoting around and trying to pave the groundwork for. I think that's why there's even institutional excitement for things like greater crypto, from not just stable coins, but even other layer ones, which I'm not a fan of and I don't think are great for people or for the decentralized use case that I'm excited about with money. But I think there's money pouring into these because these institutions want to speculate on what is happening here with the United States government and the broader crypto economy and how much they need it to succeed. I'll hand it back there because I think there's a few more stories that relate to that we'll get into.
I do have one more question for you, though, about this, because it's kind of an interesting. Bitcoin kind of started as this almost seeming grassroots thing for the people to fight against TradFi, right? And it was a primarily retail-driven movement through the previous cycles. Now we're in this new cycle, and retail, like to your point, maybe feels an element of distrust based on past happenings like FTX. Is retail now starting? Are they waiting for now Bitcoin to kind of get out of this middle phase and become so like a feeling of institutionalized where they can trust it again. And that's where these kind of Bitcoin treasury companies are coming in. So it might be like, we don't see retail come in full-fledged this cycle, if the cycles are even still a thing anymore. And maybe it's next cycle, we're in a new era of Bitcoin's maturation process where retail is like, okay, I'm ready to buy back in. Do you think there might be any truth to it, or what do you kind of see happening?
Yeah, I think
as we
a cycle
move
or
into
two.
this next phase?
I think retail will come begrudgingly back through their retirement accounts in a cycle or two, through exposure through all the companies in the S&P 500, but also through this executive order that Trump is issuing now. And if that survives, because that's an executive order, that's not a law, and if that survives a future administration, that will pave a way for retail to be told by their wealth advisors to put 3 to 5% into real Bitcoin through their 401ks. And I don't think that they're going to ask for it as much as be told to do it down the road. I think just a very, I think Bitcoin comes through pain. I think you see it through the Bitcoin treasury companies. It's failing companies that come to Bitcoin. They're not surviving in the fiat system. And the companies that are doing the best in the fiat system, the Microsoft, the Apple, the Amazons, they'll be the last to become a Bitcoin treasury company because they have no reason to, or the least amount of reasons to, because the system is working for them very well. And so they don't see the problem. And so I think it's a similar thing with retail. I don't think they see Bitcoin as a solution right now. I think they feel burned by Bitcoin. I don't think they understand Bitcoin. But maybe down the road they'll be told to buy Bitcoin. And through these Bitcoin treasury companies and their infiltration into the S&P 500, hopefully as many Americans as possible will benefit from Bitcoin price exposure indirectly from their S&P 500 exposure over the near term. Hopefully America will do well as these companies and Bitcoin gets rolled out through our older or more traditional financial system, and Bitcoin sort of eats that system. So hopefully Americans will benefit. The economy hopefully will do better. But I don't see retail coming screaming back, especially in the next 6 months. Even with Bitcoin going up a lot in price, if it were to, I don't see that being the siren call to retail that it was in 2017 and maybe 2021.
Yeah, I agree. I feel like retail has been a little snake bitten, and we're seeing it now. But once the trust is reestablished, the floodgates are open, and then I'm going to come pick you up in my brand new monster truck I'm going to buy, and we're going to hit the town. So I'm excited for that. Cedric Hang 10, we're going to go over this next story. I'm going to bring you right back. The latest U.S. Consumer Price Index CPI report just dropped, and it landed firmly in the bull zone. July CPI came in at 2.7%, which is actually like a 0.1% lower than what was forecasted, reinforcing market expectations for a potential Fed rate cut in September. With inflation appearing under control, the market reacted with cautious optimism. Bitcoin didn't quite blast off to new all-time highs yet. There you go. But it crept even closer, and it's been flirting with that 120K level as of like right now. I don't know what the actual price is right now. We're just beneath 120, so there you go. Analysts are now watching to see whether the Fed will actually follow through on a rate cut and what that could mean for risk assets like Bitcoin, especially as open interest and leverage across the market continues to build. So we're bringing Cedric back. Cedric, the CPI report came in beneath that 2.8%, I think it was 2.7%, which was almost right on target, even a little below. Were you surprised by how the market responded or didn't in wake of that news?
No, my sort of base case right now is for the market not to respond to what you would think is good news in a very, rapturous way. The market is sort of just plodding along cautiously here. And big institutions are acquiring Bitcoin behind the scenes. And, traders will continue to swing trade. OGs will continue to offload Bitcoin as long as they still have huge stashes to do so. No, I'm not terribly surprised. I think, it's almost we're all expecting it. Or when I say all, sort of that sentiment that I don't see that thing playing out as it's sort of Murphy's Law. What we all expect is not going to happen. So it's going to be the unexpected that sets Bitcoin off. It's that random snowflake on the mountain that sets off the tsunami 3,000 miles away in Japan. It's not what you think it is. But I do think the Fed lowering rates would be one of those things, especially if they started to lower rates in a very aggressive way. Bitcoin does sort of feed on liquidity and easy money. So I think that's why everyone is hoping, that these indicators will force the Fed to lower rates. I think people who are really sort of, are really anticipating and hoping for a bull run are looking to, the Fed to lower rates. So it's a phenomenal fight that's happening with Powell and the Fed and Trump. How public it's playing out. It's been it's a theater. It's a live show, and I'm curious to see how Powell goes forward. Do you think he's going to lower rates in September?
I think so. I mean, how many times can Trump threaten the man's job? I know he's kind of backtracked on that recently, but with the CPI coming in a little cooler than expected, I got to feel it. I think I've been seeing in the newspapers and whatnots, I've been seeing percentages thrown around 80. They're saying like 90% now. They think a Fed rate cut could happen next month. What are your thoughts? From your seat at the table, do you think we're still going to be waiting for more confirmation, or does this feel like it's starting to maybe be an inevitability at this point?
I think Trump and Powell have to be working together behind the scenes. I think that this has to be an orchestrated dance between the two of them. So I don't know what, I think that Powell, needs a fight on his hands to keep the rates high. I don't think he wants to lower rates. I don't think that's the way he wants to go. Some people are starting to see him as the GOAT of the Federal Reserve, of being able to tiptoe through this environment and this economy. And, from a lot of angles, the American economy just looks really strong right now. And I don't think they're going to lower rates until things crack, until things go bust. That's when we get rate cuts. We don't get rate cuts when things are going well. So I think things are a little too good right now for Powell to back off and to lower rates. And I think, Trump, I think Bessent and Trump are working on ways to bring liquidity to the economy, not through the Federal Reserve, but through the Treasury. And, to do those things, they might need a heel or a fight over here with the Federal Reserve to justify the other actions they're taking. And Powell might be on board. Hey, help me, I'll help you do what you want outside the Federal Reserve, and I'll take it on the chin, and I'll look like I'm standing up to you. And it just seems like a show. I don't believe they're having an honest fight in public. I don't think that's how they would go about it.
That's so interesting. It's really gotten me kind of thinking here, because say what you want about Trump, right? He might be the greatest marketer and showman politically, maybe even otherwise, of our time, right? We saw it with the tariffs. Tariffs for everybody. I'm pulling them back. More tariffs. But now we had more tariff revenue, I think, than ever before. It was an outstanding amount last quarter. So part of me thinks maybe he is this kind of savant that maybe we're not giving him enough credit for in certain arenas. I don't know, but this is the great governmental telenovela we never knew we needed.
I would love
at the very least.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not a huge fan of politics, and so of any particular president. Trump seems though like he is smart and that he picks things up quickly. I do wonder how much of these moves and strategy are from his design, or he just picks his favorite sort of person or oracle on the situation and goes with their plan. I'd love to know how much is from his direction versus how much he's just taking in and agreeing to. So that's fascinating. But back to your point about CEOs of Bitcoin treasury companies and how much they have to be a face in the media. Well, that's, Trump is the CEO of America, and he has to be out front, and he battles in the attention economy like everyone else. And there's probably no one better at commanding attention, in our information age than Trump right now, as a political candidate. And he's, we had the TV presidents, Kennedy and Clinton, and then we had the first sort of internet president, and he's the first social media president of America, of the United States of America. So he really sort of commands attention, and that's a big part of the economy right now is sentiment, right? How do people feel about the economy? Because the economy is not one thing. The economy, we're in this sort of K-shaped economy where the top half is doing, or the top quarter, or the top 10%, or top 5%, however you want to see it, probably very well. And the bottom 50% is really struggling. But on a macro basis, that can kind of look like a good economy. And he has to keep everyone on the same page, or try to, or prevent mutiny. So he's out there battling, just like everyone else, for attention. So probably one of the greatest advocates of all time for a president.
I'm kind of in the same boat as you. I don't really like to have a political opinion one way or the other, and there's certainly things about his presidency I haven't loved, but I gotta respect the man's acumen for playing to the crowds and knowing how to do it effectively. And that can just be seen by, I don't think we've ever seen a more impassioned fan base of any political character in history than we have for Donald Trump. So, you take the good with the bad, and there are some things he has proven to be incredibly good at somehow, but we'll see how things keep moving. We're still only 7 months into his most recent term of office, so your guess is really as good as mine, my friend. Yeah, it really does. Time moves really slowly, but also really fast with him. I don't get it. Cedric, we're going to take a quick break so we can each catch a breather and have a quick drink break here. When we're back, though, we got more stories that we want to talk about, including Blue Origin is now accepting Bitcoin for space tourism. We never knew we needed it, but I guess we do. So Cedric and I will be back right after this break. More Blockchain Report right after this.
Security matters. Zappo Bank, the only way to bank your Bitcoin. Apply now at zappobank.com.
So, tell us about your furry friend here. What's his name?
Oh, this? This is Bitcoin.
Bitcoin?
It's not just a cat, he's family.
Quite a name, and I must say, looks quite pampered.
Oh, absolutely. Bitcoin deserves nothing but the best. He's my little prince.
But with such a valuable pet, aren't you afraid of losing him?
Losing Bitcoin? No, it never happened before, so it's not something I worry about. Excuse me for a moment. Bitcoin, stay here, right?
Bitcoin, no! Bitcoin, come on, little buddy, Bitcoin, I need you. Don't go.
All right, and we're back for more Blockchain Report as we're being joined by my good friend Cedric Youngelman to talk shop specifically about this next story. Again, we talked about it earlier in the day, but to recap, Jeff Bezos' Blue Origin is now accepting Bitcoin, Ethereum, Solana, and stablecoins for space flights on its new Shepard rocket. Payments are powered by Shift4, and customers can use wallets like Coinbase or MetaMask to book a seat in space. In fact, Tron founder Justin Sun has already flown on the rocket, making this a potential milestone in crypto adoption. We're bringing back Cedric. Cedric, When you saw that Blue Origin now accepts crypto for space travel, what was your reaction? Is this a gimmick or is it a game changer? What do you think?
Oh, this is a total gimmick. This is marketing. This is, to appeal to, a certain crowd, maybe capitalize on their, newfound wealth or riches, and to get buzzed out. I got to sit in a replica of the Blue Origin capsule in Las Vegas at the Bitcoin conference 2020-25. This is a little cramped. I don't know. I wonder if they're having trouble selling tickets. I have no idea. But, it's a great way to get the word out. It's a great way to accumulate Bitcoin if you can. I don't think that this is a game changer in any sort of way. I think it's just to capitalize on some notoriety and some buzz. But why wouldn't every company want to accept Bitcoin, right? So it's not a negative thing. Everything's good for Bitcoin. They're getting the word out for Bitcoin. Sure, they'll take it. Why would anyone want to spend their Bitcoin, right? I think that's sort of I think we need change. If Trump could do anything, President Trump could do anything for Bitcoin. It's not even have America buy Bitcoin. It's eliminate the capital gains tax on Bitcoin transactions. Treat it, you love Bitcoin so much, treat it as good as money. Treat it as good as the dollar. Right? That would be great.
Yeah.
That would be amazing and brilliant. And that would unleash tremendous surge in Bitcoin pricing, I believe. And every company would want to accept Bitcoin, but people need to have liquidity to spend. We need consumers to have enough Bitcoin to want to offload. And if they have enough Bitcoin, usually that comes through long-term price depreciation, and then to pay taxes on it would not be fun. So, but good for Jeff Bezos. He's getting in shape. So maybe he has become a Bitcoiner and values his future.
And he just got married at that lavish wedding in Italy or whatever. Sure. Part of me, I agree with you. I don't think it's a game changer, and I do think there's definitely a gimmick element to it. But I do wonder, could this be moving the needle for Bitcoin a little bit, in the sense that it is a very big public story? Jeff Bezos, Amazon, everybody uses Amazon. Do you think in any way this could start maybe getting in people's mind that Jeff Bezos has been secretly orange pilled? And, if Amazon starts accepting Bitcoin, that's a pretty big narrative in and of itself. Bezos, he's a smart guy. Maybe he's playing chess and there's something more to this than we don't know. Do you think that's possible?
I don't know. You hear Jeff Bezos and Blue Origin. Do you relate? I don't relate once I hear Blue Origin. So I kind of think of it as like far-fetched. And I think if anything, like maybe retail sees this again as hokey, as, you can take your magic internet money and go to the moon, literally. This is what Jeff Bezos is doing with his free time after, Amazon. I think if Bezos wanted to use his name, or want is a leap, but if Bezos's name were to be utilized to get sort of retail interested and turn their head, it would be through the Amazon platform. Amazon is accepting Bitcoin as payment for their, plastic goods from China. That would be, a game changer.
Oh, yeah. Well, part of me wonders, is this Jeff's way of just kind of dipping his toe in the orange-colored water and seeing how people react to it? I don't know. It's there's always these games behind the scenes that we don't know.
I haven't seen a quote attributed to Jeff Bezos about this sort of initiative. So we don't even know how aware he is of his company's offerings and sort of payment structure, and whether this is interesting to him or not. If he were to come out and say, of course, Blue Origin's accepting Bitcoin as payment, because it's the greatest money on earth, and we're going to take it to space. But they're taking Solana and some other things as well. So it's not Bitcoin focused. They're not shining the light just on Bitcoin. So I just don't see this as being a big deal to sort of consumer people like us, at where we are compared to the billionaires. If anything, I think this is a message to other billionaires. and customers of Blue Origin. Yeah, I think it's a bit of marketing gimmick. Not a game changer, but could he be tipping his toes in, whether he's doing that on purpose for the benefit of consumer? Maybe it is something that Jeff is really interested in now, and maybe more will come.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think it's probably just a gimmick. If it was only Bitcoin and not Solana and Ethereum, I don't know if Dogecoin was included or whatever, I do wonder if it would signal something a little bit different. At the very least, Bitcoin or Blue Origin to the moon seems like a very natural marketing fit in this media marketing world we live in currently. But yeah, I think it's just a bunch of baloney right now. But hey, it's fun to talk about.
Yeah, I mean, they've only done 14 flights, and there's only like 6 or 8 people on a flight, so it's not like they're doing a lot of transactions. It wouldn't. They don't need a lot of volume for this to work for them. They need this to bring in another 20 customers, and it's a win.
Right. And it seems like they're letting anybody go up in that thing. I mean, Katy Perry was up there. Gayle King, Oprah's friend, was up there. Like, they're just letting anyone up in this thing anyway, so it kind of ruins some of the cachet for me personally, but whatever. All right, we're going to move on from this story, Cedric. That one was fun, but let's get to the meat and potatoes. So I'm going to be back with you in just a second because we want to talk about Michael Saylor's company, now branded as Strategy. It was the artist formerly known as MicroStrategy. They just bought another 155 BTC, bringing its total to nearly 629,000 Bitcoin, or almost 3% of Bitcoin's total supply. Their average cost is currently around $73K per coin, and the company has over $47 billion left in funding capacity. And with no major debt due until 2028, they certainly seem to be in it for the long haul. We're bringing Cedric back. Cedric, what does it say about Michael Saylor's strategy, no pun intended, now that his company holds nearly 3% of all Bitcoin?
Well, you know, to be honest, the takeaway for me wasn't the 3%, because the 155 Bitcoin only moved that needle, you know, over that sort of, it was at 2.99% before. So it was already an astronomical amount. The story for me is the continuous buying, the consistent program of buying, the point of letting the market know that this huge Bitcoin treasury company with 74 billion worth of Bitcoin already made a point of buying 155 Bitcoin this week to show. And I think over time, because it sounds like a small buy, it's only 18 million. It's nothing compared to previous buys. But 18 million is still a huge buy for a Bitcoin treasury company compared to all its peers. And I think it shows again, and over time, this will matter, having a consistent record of buying Bitcoin persistently at all times and with any amount. So I think that's the bigger takeaway for me, is the consistent buying.
Yeah. How, everyone especially in this Bitcoin treasury space and really in the whole Bitcoin ecosystem has their eyes on Michael Saylor and Strategy as they're really just leading this charge into this new era. How big of a deal would it be, obviously, if he started selling, but what if he just stopped buying as frequently? Could that impact the market in a negative way if we're just not seeing those consistent buys from them? Would people start getting a little worried and start walking on eggshells? Like, what do you think could happen then?
Well, I think right now, I think he's the pioneer in this space, and I think it's important that he shows consistent purchasing of Bitcoin, even a small amount like 155 Bitcoin, which sounds small for Strategy. I think it's really important. I think the market would crumble without his buying. No, I don't think the market would crumble, but I think the premise and the hypothesis would potentially wither in terms of a Bitcoin treasury company. I think it's really important that he continues to show that track record. If he were to sell Bitcoin, I think that would also be highly dependent on timing, but I think that could have a much greater impact on market price in the short term and market sentiment, especially if Bitcoin was already spiraling or coming down a lot in price prior to Strategy offloading or selling Bitcoin. And I think that's sort of one real concern or fear is that there's a black swan event. Bitcoin crashes by 50% in a day, 75% over a quarter. And strategy was to be forced to offload Bitcoin in a situation like that. But in the most recent earnings call, they go over, and they chart out and map out what volatility would do to the situation and the modeling. So they'll look at what if Bitcoin crashes 50%, what if it crashes 60, 70, 80, 90%. And they're showing that even, 75% drawdown over the next 5 years, they would be able to sustain, even maybe a 90% drawdown. Now, again, things could change. They could go out and buy more Bitcoin. They could issue more debt, and all that changes a little bit. But as of now, they don't seem over leveraged at all and could withstand massive volatility. I think they could withstand volatility that these other Bitcoin treasury companies would not. Not all of them would survive, for sure, if there was a massive drawdown right now. But I hope Bitcoiners, all of this doesn't really apply to you in terms. I mean, volatility applies to you, but if you hold your own Bitcoin in self-custody cold storage, I think it's a lot easier to weather volatility as an individual. If you're not out over your skis, you're not over leveraged. And I think it's easier to hold on to real Bitcoin than it would be securities in the equity market. Because it would, in the event of a black swan event and mass drawdown, short sellers will attack vulnerable equities. I mean, that's just the nature of equity markets and capital markets. So different threat vector as a security holder. And if a company were to go bankrupt, in the bankruptcy proceedings, security holders are not first in line; they're last in line for the assets. So just be cautious of how you allocate your capital and manage your risk.
Yeah.
But I would hope that we get to a place that even if Satoshi were to wake up and sell coins, that doesn't change my long-term thesis for Bitcoin and how Bitcoin should respond in price or its exchange rate with the US dollar over long periods of time, even if Satoshi were to start selling. But of course, market might react violently in that case in the short term.
Yeah, well, at the very least, and I'm glad you went through their earnings call, that apparently they have a very calculated plan in place, because we really need a steward of this Bitcoin ship to have those answers prepared. God forbid we ever endure another black swan event like COVID or zombies or God knows whatever else. So luckily we have our Lord and Sailor, Michael Saylor, at the helm doing us right.
Sure.
It seems like there he is. He's been doing a great job running the ship.
Yeah, but just keep in mind, strategy might survive a 90% drawdown, but it's not going to be good for its share price. So,
no, definitely
surviving is not thriving in that situation,
right?
Especially as an individual shareholder. So,
yeah,
not financial advice.
So far, no. So far, so good. He does seem to be pointing us to the Bitcoin North Star, so I guess we're going to have to keep following it for now. Cedric, we got to wrap things up here, my man. First of all, always such a pleasure to have you on the show and get to tap into your just boundless wisdom of this space. It's always great to have your perspective on all things Bitcoin. Before we let you go today, though, where can our audience, if they haven't already tuned in, check out the Bitcoin Matrix podcast? What can they expect? Do you have any episodes or guests you're excited about that are coming on the show soon that they should be making sure to tune into?
Sure. Well, thank you so much for having me and the kind words. I really love coming on your program. You could find the Bitcoin Matrix. We release a show every Monday. This week we have Jesse Myers talking about Bitcoin treasury companies and the smarter web story and how he got involved and passionate about this paradigm shift in traditional finance. And we could find me and my co-host Paul Tarantino, CEO of Byte Federal, on Bitcoin Center every Tuesday at 8 p.m. live Eastern time at 8 p.m. Eastern. Brought to you by Byte Federal. And that show is a lot more like, it's like pardon the interruption from ESPN. The show is the debate. The debate is the show. And next week, I'll have a frat from the You're the Voice podcast on. We'll talk about CBDCs in depth. So love what you guys are doing. Thanks for having me. It's always a pleasure, and I have a lot of fun when I come on here.
Well, we appreciate the kind words, Cedric. The pleasure and honor is truly all ours. And again, to our audience, please check out the podcast. It is so good. It is like one of the most unique and interesting, podcasts in the space. Certainly better than this show. So please check it out. You will not regret it. And Cedric, again, thank you for your time. We hope to see you again really soon, bud. Appreciate you stopping in.
Yeah, anytime. Love coming on.
Cheers. All right. Enjoy the rest of your week. All right, gang. It's time for Bullish, Bearish, or BS. Let's wrap up today's show. Run the stinger. Let's go. All right, boys and girls, this is the part of today's show where we break down our top stories of the day and give you the diagnosis and tell you what it actually means for the price of Bitcoin now and in the future. Let's do it. First up, to recap, David Bailey says he's executing a $760 million Bitcoin buy using a VWAP strategy, claiming it'll be spread across the day to avoid turning the market into a giant trampoline. I'm bullish on this. I mean, massive institutional-sized buys like this tighten supply and send signals of conviction across the market. Even if it's not a full $1 billion, the market knows someone's buying big, and the price tends to front-run that enthusiasm. So big buys equal big bullish signals. I'm bullish on that one. Great start. Next up, markets expected the July CPI to come in at 2.8%. It came in a little lower at 2.7%, which feels pretty good. And analysts say this could be the macro catalyst that sends Bitcoin to new highs in the not too distant future. I mean, come on, guys. Lower inflation means rate cuts are back on the table, baby. And Bitcoin historically thrives in low rate, risk on environments. CPI's cooled down a little bit and the rockets are already getting fueled. We're just waiting for takeoff, baby. So I'm bullish on that one too. Hot start, 2 for 2. Last but not least, Blue Origin is now accepting Bitcoin, Ethereum, and stablecoins for commercial space tourism powered by Shift4 payments. As my man Cedric and I talked about, this is a fun headline, but let's be real. Does it really do anything for price action? No. This is just a fun marketing gimmick, but hey, the average Bitcoin holder is not swapping their sats for 11 minutes in zero gravity with Bezos and Katy Perry anytime soon. But hey, anything that talks about Bitcoin in mass media is probably a good thing going forward. So I am calling BS with a slight hint of bullishness to it. So today's final score, 2 bullish, 1 BS. That makes today officially a bullish day for Bitcoin, baby. Bailey follows through and the CPI hit actually below expectations. We're feeling pretty good and we could be waking up to some new all-time highs very, very soon. Well, that's a wrap for today's episode of the Blockchain Report, boys and girls. As always, thank you so much for tuning into this show. Remember, we all get up at 4 a.m. every morning to bring you the most relevant news in the Bitcoin space so that you can make the most informed decisions possible, not have to wade through all the websites. We bring it all to you right here on a silver, orange, gold platter for your enjoyment, and hopefully you have a good time while you're watching it. So if you haven't already, please smash that like and subscribe button like it's a leverage short at resistance, and make sure to subscribe to RoxomTV and yours truly at Hank at RoxomTV on every platform that matters. As always, I'm Hank Hudson. I'll see you tomorrow for more Blockchain Report. Until then, sayonara, amigos.